Welcome back to the Nailsin Ratings. Going to talk about The Flash, the episode titled, What Is Past is Prologue. Yes, that's true, and even more so with a character who can travel through time. And time travel's been a part of this show from the beginning, as the origin of the show revealed that the Flash was pushed to his own making sooner than he had already had in the original reality. So it's important to remember that time travel always played a role in this show, and certainly in this season with his daughter coming from the future and giving little clues and whatnot. We already knew that the Flash at some point would vanish and be presumed dead, and this girl had to grow up without him, and that's why she's coming back apparently to see him. But in reality, she's looking for a way to prevent that from happening. She wants to change time. And in this episode, they decided to use time travel because they figured it was the only way to defeat the new arch villain of this season, Cicada, because of his ability to shut their powers off. And they figured it was the only way to get around it, so I had this long, convoluted way of using dark matter and different pieces from the past they needed, from Savitar's costume to the device that Zoom used, and on and on and on. And you got a little tour over the past seasons, and they did it very well. I mean, maybe some of the hair looks a little off for some of the characters having to try to look like they did then, but other than that, they weave it very well. A lot of shows attempt to do this, movies do it, and of course it always brings back to Back to the Future 2, where they went back into the previous movie and used footage and that sort of thing, and it was all cool. And so there's a nod to that where they play one of the Huey Lewis songs in it. And their plan more or less works, except Cicada manages to escape. Because all along, beyond just his magical dagger, he's been gaining his own powers each time they would show him. And it's very painful, but he did become stronger. And apparently now he can fly, because he just flies away. But the interesting thing is they were able to weave back in through all this manipulation of time Eobard Thawne, who of course was the best villain they've had in the series, and bringing him back through this, and revealing that, there were certain little secrets of what. One was that Nora didn't just want to meet her father and get to know him. She wanted to save him. That's one that already revealed, and changing time in doing so. And now, well, it became pretty obvious through this that, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, is the one that helped her travel back in time to meet her parents, and he's been manipulating this. And it didn't really come out and say it, but I think it's fairly obvious that the Wells they have is not Wells, but once again Eobard Thawne in disguise. So it probably set the whole thing in motion by the fact that he got a hold of her diary that has the secret language in it that reveals that time and the timeline is malleable, which would explain how someone who supposedly ceased to exist can now exist again, and all this sort of thing. It would connect, I suppose, to what happened in Legends when they were dealing with Reverse Flash as their main villain, but he was the original Eobard Thawne and not in his Wells persona. But he ended up failing to save himself and began to wink out of time. But well, you never want a good villain to go away, so he's back. Now, the last crossover, he showed up and he was back in his Wells form, and he just said, I just want to look at it like it again, or something like that. That seemed a little ridiculous and stupid. So maybe this pans it out that no, he's been up to something, and that's why he's back in that form. So anyway, a very good episode, and I tell you, even ones that aren't all that great or all that creative or what have you, it still flows together. Their what I called their filler episodes are good, because most filler episodes are terrible. And you need to watch The Flash. Well, when Star Trek and Doctor Who and all that's just failing you, this show, even at its weakest, just doesn't let you down. It's a good cast. It's a show that has some amount of respect which is lacking in a lot of these sci-fi and fantasy genre shows and franchises. This one just races right along, and I get the feeling they're coming to a conclusion because for whatever reason the ratings just they're not holding. They apparently weren't doing so great. I'm not up to date on those now. Maybe it's improving. It should, but I still in this show in some levels was as good as the Time Bomb episode from last season, and it just the way they crafted it, you can tell they put a lot of work in it to make this work. And it sets it all up, and boy, I hope the payoff is well. Usually the payoff isn't great, but before the show ends, you get a teaser for the upcoming crossover, and who should be there but, yes, John Wesley Shipp in his original Flash outfit, and you see his world where there's versions of different superheroes. Stargirl was there, Green Arrow, and a few others that I couldn't quite make out. The masks of Hawkman and Hawkwoman, I believe, were there. All this sort of thing. And his world has just been completely devastated and wiped out. And it appears the 90s Flash is the only survivor of his world. And then the Monitor appears and is holding an ancient book. Now, an ancient book or anything like that never really played into the Crisis on Infinite Earths or anything like that. But it did bear a resemblance to the Book of Destiny, which the entity of the Endless known as Destiny would actually carry around. So it's possible maybe they have gotten a hold of this thing and it's screwing with these different worlds. But it looks like the old 90s Flash world is gone. It's in flames and everything, and looks like John Wesley Shipp Flash managed to escape, and we'll see him in the crossover, I suspect. I'm wondering if they'll bring in the Jay Garrick version that John Wesley Shipp plays as well, but I guess we'll just have to see. But boy, I hope it lives up to all the little teases and atmospherics that this thing produces, because it's, when you're a DC Comics nerd and a comics nerd and superhero nerd, all that stuff, it just really tickles your fancy. But it needs to pay off. So as for the Flash series on its own, I'm not sure. The way it's set up, it seems this time travel manipulation that the Flash and his daughter is doing would play into this and cause the problems that results into whatever this Crisis crossover thing is. And so but I'm wondering after the crossover happens that they'll go back to their storyline with Nora and what's going on there. That might be how they do it. I'm not sure. But it would be cool if it does weave into it. It would make a lot of sense. There's some interesting things here. I'm not sure. A lot of times these time travel shows, they get too complicated and the writers lose track of what they were doing. I mean, there's a scene there where Zoom sees them and he chases after them. And then the time wraith comes and gets him, which happened to him originally, but not like this. So, boy, that's a little odd, but I guess the time wraith had to deal with that and maybe put right what once went wrong. Yeah, the time wraith is Scott Bakula from I don't know. Anyway, a good show. The Past is Prologue. Look it up. You can go to their site and watch it while it's still up. A great show. And you need to be watching The Flash. Like I said, there's other genres, other franchises failing now in these fantasy and superhero and sci-fi stuff, but this one isn't. It's pretty consistent. It respects itself, and by that, it respects its audience. So, The Flash. Please go watch it. Thank you for watching and listening. Like and subscribe, and check out the link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you.